Earlier, I caught up with Manish Sabharwal, Chairman, TeamLease, a leading HR consulting firm and a leading voice, Manish, in the space of job creation. I started by asking him about the nature of the Indian unemployment data that had just been released. Here's that chat.
There are two kinds of unemployment. One is frictional unemployment, which is just temporary between jobs, and the other is structural unemployment. Most unemployment in India is frictional unemployment, and so you could see sort of seasonal upturns in unemployment. And anyway, by global standards, 5% is not a wrong number. India doesn't have a jobs problem, we have a wages problem. So probably unemployment is the wrong number to look at, because anybody who has a job, wants a job, has a job. Unfortunately, they don't have the wages that they want. So anybody can get a job at 5,000 rupees, but it's very difficult to live in a big city at 5,000 rupees. So more than unemployment, underemployment is probably important. So 5% as a number is nice to compare because Western economies look at it like that. But I'm not sure it's a relevant number for India.
The total sample size last year, that was taken into account by the Labour Bureau. They surveyed about 1.5 million households, which people say is clearly, is still a very small sample size. And many people actually are now fearing that the actual unemployment rate could be a lot higher. So it's because the sample size is so small that the unemployment rate has come in at 5%, which you're saying is not, is not significant. But many people would say that it is not significant because the sample size is on the lower side.
Actually, not really. My point is that 40% of the labor force in India is working poor. They make enough money to live, but not enough money to pull out of poverty. So unemployment is not as pervasive a problem in India because the poor cannot afford to be unemployed. So most of them take marginal self-employment, right? 50% of the labor force in India is officially self-employed. Most of that self-employment is self-exploitation.
Do you think, the government is on the right trajectory as far as addressing the issue of unemployment is concerned?
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing a government can do about jobs in the next 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks, or 3 months. But you can absolutely transform the agenda over a 3 to 5 year period. If you think of the skill agenda, the urbanization agenda, the Make in India agenda, the ease of doing business agenda, all of these are what will create more good jobs. So as of now, I think monitoring the unemployment rate and particularly such small changes, not only is it a rounding error, but you're looking in the wrong place. The right place to look at is underemployment, is wages, because everybody who wants a job has a job, they don't just have the wages they want.
Many would say that at a time when the world is at the cusp of this fourth industrial revolution, is India really ready for it?
India only has 11% of its labor force in manufacturing. So going up to 20%, which will be another 100 million jobs, is not a problem. I don't think we'll ever get to the 28, 30 or 45% of our labor force in manufacturing as the rest of the world did. So the fourth industrial revolution is interesting. It actually plays to India's strengths because a lot of it will be at the intersection of software and manufacturing. So India's software services, which is going through its mid-age crisis, might actually combine with manufacturing to give India a unique position in the new world of manufacturing. Manufacturing has shifted from bending metal to combining metal with software, and that might work in India's favor. So I think we're well positioned for the fourth industrial revolution, whatever it means, I'm not sure. But more manufacturing, for sure, we can go from 11% to 20% of the labor force.
NASSCOM has come out with their predictions, and they believe that this financial year, in fact, going ahead, the amount of jobs that were created in the previous years, at least in terms of job growth, would be a lot lesser than what we have historically seen in the past, and they believe that it's primarily because of automation. I know you and I have had these conversations, and you've said that automation is not as big a sort of a threat to to Indian jobs as many sort of make out. But clearly, when you have these sort of surveys and these forecasts that come out from premier bodies, clearly, there are, it does sort of force one to sit up and take notice and acknowledge the sort of latent force and the challenge that robotics and automation actually, the challenge that it poses to mainstream jobs.
Sure. In IT services, I think we may have peaked in employment. IT services is probably at the cutting edge or the frontier of the productivity frontier or productivity curve. Yes, at the cutting edge, at the higher end of manufacturing, has employment elasticity come down? Sure. Is the employment elasticity of the IT services industry coming down? Sure. But the fastest growing segments in India are around domestic consumption, which is sales, customer service and logistics. And I think that we can easily create another 200 million jobs in that area as we clean up the regulatory cholesterol, as we improve urbanization, as we improve human capital. So I am clear that the demographic dividend in India still is a gift, and despite what happens in the world in terms of automation, India's domestic consumption engine can absorb a lot of the people coming off farms or the young kids coming into the labor force.
Considering the sort of labor laws that India have had traditionally and the efforts that the government has made, in fact, they are working on simplifying them. They've come out with a new labor code where they've sort of will be bringing in all the laws and then it's sort of into 4 separate legislation as opposed to, God knows how many. You'd probably know how many there are currently. Is that alone going to address the issue of low percentage of people employed in the manufacturing sector?
No, I think manufacturing is low in India for various reasons, infrastructure, regulatory cholesterol, but yes, labor laws is an important part of that. And an employment contract which is marriage without divorce, which is what employment laws make it to be, obviously needs to be addressed at some point in time. 29 chief ministers matter more than one prime minister for fertile habitats for manufacturing job creation, and I think labor law reform action is shifting to the states. Obviously the center has to do a lot, but my sense is the combination of making progress rather than worrying about hire and fire and handing more to state governments has actually resulted in the fact that we've made more labor reform in the last 2 years than the 20 years before that.
Recent here on CNBC TV 18, we had done a survey and we sort of picked out the top, about the top 5 automobile companies in India, and we sort of tried to see the sort of employment generation that happened there. And we saw that while all the auto guys had seen their overall workforce increase, but 70% of this increase in workers were actually contract and they were not permanent workers. My question is that are companies also somewhere hiding behind these archaic labor laws, actually now giving it as an excuse for not going in and hiring permanent workers who, as you would know better than me, are better paid, are entitled to more benefits than their contractual peers?
Well, first of all, that's not true. I mean, India is the only country in the world where there is no difference in the law between what a contract worker, the benefits that you get, PF, ESI. So if any contract labor is not receiving PF or ESI, that's not legal. To my mind, the debate is informal versus formal rather than contract versus permanent, which will make me to my next point. I think employment has changed. Employment has shifted from a lifetime contract to being a taxi cab relationship. I'm not talking about the Uberization of the labor force here where everybody is self-employed, but the defined benefit, index-linked, pension for life, lifetime employment, that train has left the station. Jobs are no longer what they used to be. Companies are no longer live as long as they used to, and shareholders don't pay salaries, customers do. We're in a very different world of work than 20 or 30 years ago, and I don't think that's good or bad, it's just what it is. So my sense is that employment, employers, labor laws are all going to be challenged by the relentless march of globalization, technology, and the growth that is competition that is happening in the Indian economy.